Okay, my name is Luis Garcia, and I'm going to try this again. The first time I did it, it was 7 minutes, and this last time was 8 minutes, so I'm going to try to condense the information down a little bit. My name is Luis Garcia. Um, I'm taking the LA County Office of Education vpss course online, which is English Tier 2. My professor is Professor Spar, and today is June 7th, 2016. The topic for today is the postmodern era, which is 1901 to about 1950. It's an interesting era of literature, and the piece that I decided to explore is Death of a Salesman. There was a lot of other options and a lot of different eras, but Death of a Salesman is a book that I taught before my first year teaching about 15 years back when I taught English 11 CP, and it's a story that it's a classic. It's something that resonated with myself and my students. The main character, Willie Loman, is a very interesting individual. He's definitely a tragic hero, somebody that we can all learn from. It really is an entertaining story, especially when you watch the movie and you see the 1985 performance of Dustin Hoffman. He does a really good job in that. But it's an interesting story. It's an interesting character. So Arthur Miller examines the idea of the American dream in the middle of the 20th century. I'm going to explore the American dream as it relates to Willie Loman, the character from Death of a Salesman. Willie Loman is definitely a tragic hero. Death of a Salesman has a theme of the American dream, but everybody has their own idea of the American dream. We all think about white picket fences, a nice family, things of that nature. But some people want a lot of money, wealth, maybe fame, fortune, all of the above. For Willie Loman, however, he feels that being well liked is the key to life. That's one of the most important things aside from wealth. When I think about this idea, I think about the pop culture TV show called MTV Cribs, where we see all these rich, famous people that have the money for the plastic surgery and like the chefs and the big cars and the big houses. And sometimes I think about is that really what happiness is all about? And of course, kids, they see that, they're kind of shallow, and they think, well, maybe that's what I really want. Unfortunately, every single day, media shows us that these individuals aren't necessarily happier than the regular common man, like myself, for example. Some of these people suffer from depression, from all kinds of ailments, broken relationships, sometimes addiction, etc. The piece of literature, like I said, I chose is Arthur Miller's Death of a Salesman. Reason I chose it is one of my favorite stories. It initially won a Tony when it ran back in 1949. It went for 742 performances, which is a lot of performances. It's been back 4 different times on Broadway. Willie, the main character, has dreamed of success his whole life, and unfortunately, his whole life is made up of lies for himself and for his son Biff, which is basically he's trying to live his unsuccessful life through Biff. He's kind of thinks that Biff is his last chance for leaving some kind of a mark or thumbprint on the world. As far as Arthur Miller goes, Arthur Miller is an individual who grew up during the Great Depression as a teenager, and had some hard times through college. He had to write for the paper at the University of Michigan and do some odd jobs to make sure that he made ends meet. He wasn't a successful playwright right away, but the literary time period associated with Arthur Miller is again the postmodern, and the writers during this time reflect the ideas of Darwin, which is survival of the fittest, which we see in Death of a Salesman, and also Karl Marx, how money and class structure control a nation. We see this also in Death of a Salesman. It definitely money controls everything that Willie Loman does. Out of the distrust of society's institutions, a new focus on the individual was born. And so Willie Loman focuses on himself, his family, and really trying to make Biff a successful person also before he leaves the world. Arthur Miller had some hardships. He again grew up during the Great Depression and during World War II, and that's about the time that he grew up. If Arthur Miller could get Willie Loman to look in the mirror, we wouldn't have a story at all. Willie is 63 years old. He's very unstable because his life hasn't really gone the way he imagined it. He sees events from his past as if they were real. He's starting getting delusional, starts getting crazy. Willie really seems childlike and relies on other people's support. Willie, his name Willie itself almost sounds like will he, and we obviously know that he will not be successful. His last name Loman sounds like the low man, maybe the low man on the social ladder, etc. But these ideas were always dismissed by Arthur Miller. I personally think he did those on purpose. Willie's definitely a different kind of hero because he isn't really royalty or have any kind of special powers. He's just an old common salesman. I think Arthur Miller does that on purpose. Something that's interesting here at the end of my paper, I write down that Willie causes his own downfall in the end. Willie's delusions lead him to take his own life. Here it is, right here. I put here. Some critics will argue that true tragedy, that a true tragedy is not possible with Willie as a common man, but I will argue back that a common man will suffer as much as a royal, and common man outnumbers royal, so maybe the significance is reciprocated. I just think that there's kings out there, but there's more common men than kings. At the end, the pitiful salesman kills himself, thinking that his son Biff will use the insurance money to start a successful business. But during the funeral, it becomes painfully obvious that Biff will not use the money for a business. Willie's American dream was to leave a thumbprint in the world, and the only way he can do it was by committing suicide. Very sad.